What's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Bumpin' Dots with the Docs podcast. I'm Dr. Ashley,
Hello, everyone, and I'm Dr. Herb.
and we're so excited to be doing another episode with you all. This one is titled, How Do You Know a Connection Will Last? But before we get into that, Daddy, did something interesting happen this week for you?
Yes, very interesting.
Okay, let us know what's going on.
On this past Sunday, I had an opportunity along with you and Dr. Christine and Duchess Kimberly to go to Cheehaw AME Zion Church in Tuskegee, Alabama, to talk about and present Bumpin' Dots. And many may not know, but that's a church that my father pastored years ago. So several of the members remember when I was in college, and I would drive back and forth from Montgomery, Alabama to Tuskegee to attend church, and it went exceptionally well.
Oh, it was nice being there. It was Mother's Day weekend, so being there with our mom was really exciting. And of course, the fact that our grandfather pastored there, it was just really nice seeing everyone love on you, all the mothers and sisters in the church calling you Junior.
Yes, they gave me so much love, and literally they remember me like when I was in high school, and to see me now, they was like, Junior, we're so proud of you. You got a book, and all the hugs and kisses and just showering not only me, but you and your mom and sister. That meant a lot to me.
Yes, and I know Grandpa would be very proud of you for this.
Yes, he would be.
And like you said, you were 8 years old, uh, showing signs of being a expert bumping dot, an expert at bumping dots. And so I'm sure he saw that as well as grandma at a young age and helped cultivate that in many ways. And maybe one episode we can get into that, like how parents can help their children develop those skills when it comes to bumping dots. Maybe that's something we could do.
Yes, matter of fact, I would look forward to doing an episode on how parents can assist their children on how to bump dots.
Sounds good. I wish you had done a little bit of that with me, the introverted side, because my sister Kimberly, she's an extrovert. So I think, we associate that with her naturally being able to do it. But now you have the book. It's not too late. I think that's a good lesson learned. It's not too late. I'm 34, but I still have time to learn more about bumping dots.
Yes, as the old adage goes, it's never too late.
Okay, now I do have a question. This just came to mind. This week, I definitely bumped dots with people. I won't include Sunday at Cheehaw. That's family. Even
Right.
if I was meeting them for the first time or hadn't seen them in years. But you're always bumping dots at the store, at different places. But I don't necessarily remember those dots. So I think that does tie into how do you know a connection will last. Is there something wrong to go about my week and not have, a recollection of every single dot I met or things like that? So that's something we can kind of touch on a little bit. But what would you say are the goals of this episode, that by the end of it, these are things that people should know to do or say?
Yes, you're definitely right about bumping dots and the goals for this week, that we want individuals at the end of this podcast to really get a good understanding about how to be present and what to do to help you make a connection last, and how to discern where a dot or a connection is headed.
All right, so that leads to the question of the day. How do you know a connection will last? And long story short, Dad, what is your answer?
Long story short, Ashley, to be honest, you don't know. It's all about being present. And as you stated earlier, when you're out and about for the week, you're going to bump dots with a lot of people.
Yes.
Post office, grocery store, gas station, a cookout, maybe at church. So how are you going to remember all of these dots that you ran into? You're not.
Mm-hmm.
So the short answer is you don't know.
Okay. So let's talk more about that, being present. We don't know, so we have to live in the moment. But what does being present look like exactly?
Being present is being actively engaged at that moment,
Okay.
either through body language such as eye contact or through what you're saying. So if a person says something, to have them to reiterate it or to ask a question, say, so are you saying this? That way they'll be like, oh, Ashley really was listening because she repeated that, and maybe they want to add something. So that's what being present means. Take at that moment and give your undivided attention to that dot.
I'm learning that being present is important, even more so than appearing present, because I realized that I haven't been listening as well as I thought I would. Mom kind of brought that to my attention. I'm really good, especially if we're talking about emotions or relational things. I am all there, present, engaging. But sometimes when I start getting instructions about something or I feel like it's too much for me, I will still give the nonverbals that I'm listening. I'll do yes. And then I'll think, oh my goodness, I don't remember what they said. And I felt bad because I don't know if it was necessarily like people pleasing, but it was definitely, we do have to be careful not to just appear like we're being present, but actually be present. Because when that person calls you to the carpet, not necessarily in a antagonizing way, but they say, hey, remember when I said this, or they're trying to continue the conversation and you've checked out, it can actually hinder, the bump and knocks experience. That's something I've learned.
Yes, sometimes people will put you on what we call information overload. And with information overload, you might have a tendency to check out. That's why when I say being present, not only physically, but emotionally. And emotionally, you're showing the person that, hey, through my eye contact, through my head nodding, I'm letting you know, as well as I'm going to pause every now and then and have you just to repeat something that you said, so you don't think, because we've all been in conversations where a person is talking and they're talking and talking and talking, and they'll say, did you hear what I said? And you be like, yes. And they might even say, what did I just say? And at that moment, that's the moment of truth. Either you can repeat what they said or you can't repeat what they said.
That's true. And so it's like, how do you come back from that? Sometimes you just have to own it and say, I'm sorry, I checked out. And sometimes information overload is not that the person is giving you too much information, but you already came into the situation with a lot on you. So last week was a really busy week for me. I don't like using that word busy because people tend to abuse that term, I feel like, but I really had a lot going on. So if someone's telling me something, sometimes being present is maybe saying, hey, give me 1 second so that I can put this to the side to focus on what you have going on. Yeah, definitely something that I'm working on is being present in all contexts and making sure, like you said, repeating something so the person knows I understood, and paraphrasing it, not just repeating like the last few words of what they said. So what does being present look like more so in the context of making connections last though? So yeah.
Being present to make the connection last. That is where you have to be intentional. And we've used that word before. Am I intentional in this conversation? Do I know that Ashley is someone that I really want to keep in contact with? It could be business, it could be just friendship, it could be professional, whatever. And at that point, you have to decide, how am I going to go forward with this? Am I going to ask her phone number, or what's the best way? Sometimes people don't feel comfortable asking right off the bat phone numbers, so they might say, can we connect on Instagram or something like that? And you'd be like, yes, do that. And they'll DM you, and then eventually they'll probably ask for your phone number like that. Or if this sometimes that you say this is not going anywhere, you can just bow out gracefully.
Okay, so I like that you brought up the word intentionality because last episode we talked about the difference between networking and bumping dots. And so with networking, you have an agenda, which that is a form of an intention, but it seems more self-focused and it seems more like you want to guide where it's going. But bumping dots, not only do you not know if the connection is going to last, you don't know to what extent it will form, but you're being present throughout the entire process so that you can allow what's going to happen organically.
Right.
So it's not that bumping dots is a weaker form of networking or it's so laid back it doesn't require any effort. It's more about intentionality versus just a preset agenda of this is how it has to go. Because when you think about it, that is in many ways a form of manipulation.
Yes.
And you actually limit yourself because you don't allow room to see what else can come of it.
Yes. Now, if we're talking in my book, chapter 1, okay, and page 19. So for those that have my book or will purchase it, go to page 19, and it clearly tells what bumping dots is not. Bumping dots is distinctly different from networking. Networking, while valuable, often carries a professional outcome base aimed at expanding professional contacts, opportunities, and resources. Okay? Now, unlike the calculated approach that you had just mentioned in networking, bumping dot is all about embracing the spontaneity, understanding that every person that we encounter will carry the potential to form a connection. That's the main difference. It's about recognizing the value in every interaction, seeing beyond the surface to the intricate web of possibilities that lie within each encounter. Page 19.
All right. So what made you put that specific point in there and how do you feel it relates to lasting connections?
Yes, because when you think of bumping dots, as the book said, this is the spontaneity of different chance encounters and opportunities, where a lot of people, they automatically would like to use those words together, bumping dots and networking. But as I clearly just read, they are different. And in relationship building, you want to allow the relationship to grow organically. Whereas in networking, it's it could be, as the word you used earlier, it could be a form of manipulation, or you could be kind of pushy when it comes to getting to meet a person because you have an expected outcome. You're going into that situation with an expected outcome. Whereas with bumping dots, it's spontaneity. You don't know what might happen.
Right. And I know your belief is not that networking is bad.
Right.
It's saying that bumping dots, it enhances the experience. Bumping dots can stand on its own, but if you are going to network, the bumping dots way definitely will enhance your experience because you can get more than just what you came for in terms of the networking aspect. You might go to an event with an agenda, you might be commissioned to go to an event for a very specific reason, but by having the bumping dots mindset and being present, you create opportunities for maybe your own personal benefit or helping a mutual connection as well.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Just a quick scenario of bumping dots. There was an event, and people went to this event for different reasons. You had individuals that were in business, they were in theater and stage, they were in athletics. So it was a variety of individuals from different professionals. So you had one guy, he just went just to see how things were. He had no preset agenda that, hey, I'm gonna meet with this person so I can have them invest in my business. I'm gonna meet with this person so I can get free tickets to the football game or whatever. He just wanted to go and hang out. And he just started talking to different people. And lo and behold, one of the individuals that he met, he bumped dots with a person. They became friends. Later, they became married. And later, They became business partners.
What?
All because he just went there with no preset agenda, and he allowed the relationship with his future wife to grow organically.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think that's a really like a superior approach to come with an open mind, I would say. And our family as well as friends, we have had interesting interactions with celebrities and public figures where we've built these connections with them through serendipitous encounters. Like I know, for example, I have someone who is well known, really influential in the entertainment industry, and we connected online. So it's not just about in person, there's serendipitous encounters online. And for a season, we were able to communicate on the phone, communicate virtually, and we haven't talked in a while, but that connection is still there. Sometimes connections don't close out. They might be in limbo, or they might just be where you have spaced apart and all it takes is one text or one phone call. And it's just interesting how when you're being present and you're not focused on what can this person do for me, because I'm sure a lot of celebrities have that happen to them. But I've noticed when you treat them like normal human beings, which they are, then they're more open to how things can unfold, I guess.
Right. And it's funny you mention that, Ashley. When it comes to friendships, when it comes to relationships, you don't have to call a person every day. It's not the quantity of calls, it's the quality of the call that you make. And I know people that I talk to maybe once every 4-5 months, but when we talk, it's a very quality call, and we're there for each other. Where there's other people, some of them, they want to call me every week, which I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that there's a difference in the individuals.
So what would you tell an introvert who a lot of people think we're just shy? And oftentimes that's not the case. We just are not the biggest fans of small talk. So we probably are not going to be the people who every week, as people say, shoot in the breeze, just call in, hey, I didn't need anything, just call in to talk. What are ways that we can maintain or build connections without feeling like, we're doing too much for our personality type?
Right. Well, it all starts with every person have their own set of boundaries. And with introverts, like you said, a lot of introverts, they don't like small talk. Right. They want you to just get to the point. Okay, let's move on. And when you're in a setting where there's a lot of people and a lot of talking, that could be overwhelming for introvert. Mm-hmm. So one of the strategies that I share with introverts is, hey, say when I go to this event, I know there's going to be a lot of people and a lot of talking. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take 15 minutes and I'm going to talk to 2-3 people within 15 minutes. After that, I got to do what we call a PB, a personal break. Mm-hmm. That might be go to the side of the room and just relax, go outside and just walk around and regather your thoughts, or just get you some of what we call me time, alone time. And then you re-energize yourself and you go back and you repeat the process for another maybe 10 or 15 minutes. That way, the introvert won't feel so overwhelmed, because in some settings, I know I'm an extrovert. I can go in a room, talk for hours, but everyone's not built like that. Mm-hmm. So you have a personal communication strategy, a PCS, a personal communication strategy, and you stick to it, then that way you won't become overwhelmed.
Well, this is the thing. I feel like I'm pretty good at within certain settings. Mm-hmm. Could I improve? Definitely.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's dependent on the mood, if I'm overstimulated and just need space. So that does come in handy, taking, hey, 15 minutes, I'm going to be really engaging, and then I'll take a break. But once I've established some form of a connection, so we have now exchanged social media handles or phone numbers, I'm even good with maybe that first message. But after that, if I don't immediately see even how I can give value to the person right then and there, what do? I think one thing that my sister Kimberly, she was like, sometimes she just checks on people. And I had not thought about that. Like, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. Sometimes and it may not just be introverts. You feel like, hey, am I bothering somebody? But who doesn't want to be checked on? So I do feel like, hey, just to maintain that communication, saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Definitely holidays. I know Mother's Day was just here, so that's a good way of, hey, just thinking about you. But what are some tips once the connection has been formed? Like, what's something to help maintain it?
Yeah, and that goes into what we talked about, one of the objectives, what to do to help a connection last.
Yes.
One of the things you had mentioned about you okay with being the first person to reach out either through a text on social media, right?
Right.
Then the question becomes, once you reach out, do they reach back out? If they reach out, did they do it like within a day, within a week? People are busy, and you don't want to infringe on people's schedule sometimes, but you don't want to seem thirsty either.
Right.
So there's kind of a balance. My suggestion is you reach out, and after a week, you can just do what we call another follow-up. And after that, you back off, because you don't want to seem like you're overbearing, and you don't know what might have happened to the person. So that's one of the things. Now, on the flip side of that, Ashley, let's say you reach out and like within 5 minutes, you can discern they were really glad to hear from you. And they might be like, hey, Ashley, thanks for reaching out. How you doing? How's your week? And you like, okay, this person is really into this thing right here. So at that point, you have to say, where do I want this relationship to really go? Do I just want to stay in the friend zone? Or is this a business type thing? Well, we're discussing how can we go forward in business. But before that, do you build a relationship on things they like and how to communicate? One of the things that when I meet new people and I want to, let's say business, right? I'm really thinking about want to go in business with them. After you exchange the pleasantries, then I think you have to go into what we call ground rules. And those ground rules are, hey, how do you prefer for me to communicate? Through email, through text, or through phone call, right?
Yes.
And then you be open and upfront with a person. Say, hey, these are some things that I'm doing and I would like to do. What are your thoughts?
Okay.
And at that point, that could open the door to be like, you know what? I can help you with that, or this is what you can do. And you can kind of discern from how they responded.
So I think the part that you mentioned about preferences. So I remember when I was in grad school and I was meeting with my mentor, I asked him how he preferred communication. And he was actually impressed by that question, I remember. And it helped me because now I don't have to guess. And so that can apply in different kind of relationships, mentor, mentee, friendships, romantic relationships. If this person says, hey, I prefer phone calls over text or in person instead of FaceTime, or if you FaceTime me, please don't do it, without letting me know first. Right. That helps so that you don't have to do so much guesswork with it. And yeah, that's something that definitely helps.
And some people might say, don't call me after 8:00 at night. So,
right.
So I respect their time. Yes.
I guess I'm really glad you brought that up, because with networking, the connotation. So my background's in communication, as I shared. So we learn a lot about denotation versus connotation. So denotation is like dictionary definition of networking, but there's a connotation behind it, behind the word networking, behind the word network marketing, even bumping dots. I can tell when people hear it's more of a lighthearted feel to it, and I could do this no matter what my background is. But in networking, there's this idea like you got to go in, you got to make it happen and all this stuff. And that can get overwhelming, not only for an introvert, but I'm sure extroverts or just people that does not feel genuine to them. I've been to events, festivals and things like that where I'm with somebody and they're going in and they're not even present. They're just like, who's in charge? Who do I need to talk to? And it can come off as a lot. And so by you saying what you did in terms of letting it unfold naturally, being honest with yourself about what it is that you desire. See that I think we need to stop there, because there's nothing wrong with intentionality. But networking sometimes will make you feel like, I gotta do this because I met this person as a business event. Our relationship has to be business, but it could just be we're good friends. And that actually happened. My sister and I went to a business event. We saw performers from the group Hold Fast, and we don't do business with them per se, but we enjoy hearing them perform. So we just saw them in Atlanta. Shout out to them, and hope to build a friendship over time. And could it turn into business? Yes. But that was not the focus, even though we met at a business event.
You're right. You're in communication. Your sister's into marketing. You met them in San Diego, California. Then you saw them in concert in Atlanta, Georgia, and you follow them on social media. So there's a relationship building. Right. And an opportunity may arise where they might want you all to do some marketing or communication business with them. But here's the thing that you mentioned, Ashley, because you have put in the time with them and you didn't want anything off the bat. All you guys wanted was to enjoy their music and just be around them. Now there's a level of trust.
Right.
That's there. And that can help catapult the relationship.
And it's about being sensitive to values, not just this is what I want, but do I have shared values? So let's say you're at a business event and you meet someone who's in business, but they don't have integrity, or the way they do business is just inherently different from how you do business. Then that gives you the clarity you need that maybe I could just be an acquaintance with this person. Maybe there's a literal resource, like on their website, they have this product you can buy, sure, but that doesn't mean become partners. That doesn't mean hang out or go on vacations with this person. So just being sensitive to learning about people. I think sometimes we're so quick to want to categorize people, and we're not patient with getting to know someone. We see them and we immediately make snap judgments about what they have to offer. And we don't even take time to think about what we have to offer them. Like reciprocity is something that comes up when it comes to making connections last. You can have two people who would make great partners, great friends, great romantic partners, but the reciprocity is not there. And so you can actually cause a relationship to be hindered from developing because you're only taking and you're not giving, or you're on the other end of it.
Remember earlier in the podcast when I mentioned you have to establish ground rules.
Right.
Any relationship, any business partnership, any business, you have to lay out the ground rules. And part of the ground rules will include expectations, because we cannot assume.
Right.
So make sure when we talk about effective communication, be sure what is it that you're trying to convey to the person. That way they don't say, well, I thought you meant.
Right.
And you come back and say, well, did I say that? And they come back and say, no, I just thought you meant. In other words, you assume yes. And when you assume, you got us in trouble.
It's a lot of assumptions that we make. So just checking ourselves and identifying those hiccups. I found that enjoying the process, things that have helped me, just enjoy. Like before I go into certain spaces, certain events, a lot of times my prayer is just to enjoy myself. Life is too precious and essentially too short in terms of eternity to just be out here trying to get through and striving all the time. Just enjoy, even if it's an event that you feel you won't exactly like, or you don't know how it's going to go. Like there have been a lot of things I haven't felt like having to get up and get dressed to go to, but I'm already dressed. I'm already doing it. Let me enjoy.
Yes. We're talking about bumping dots. We're talking about taking advantage of spontaneity moments.
Yes.
Me going to the University of Missouri for graduate school is a perfect example of bumping dots and the spontaneity of what happens. I attended a grad fair So we're not going to assume that everyone knows what a grad fair is. Okay. It's where representatives from different graduate schools all come together and they set up a table and they talk about the admissions process and how to get enrolled at their particular school. And they had different schools represented at this grad fair. And I did not stop at the table for the University of Missouri. And the lady at the table, she said, "Excuse me, sir, come here." And I came over. She introduced herself. I introduced myself. She said, "I noticed you've gone to all the other tables, but you didn't come to mine. Why you didn't come to mine?" And I said, "Well, University of Missouri, I don't want to go to a school where it's cold weather." And we laughed about it. And she said, "We have a program where you can come and check out our school free of charge. We'll pay for everything, your hotel, your flight." And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've never been to Missouri. And part of my bucket list is to go to all 50 states, right? So I fill out the paperwork and she looks and sees my keychain. And she said, "Oh, you an alpha?" I said, "Yes." And she started naming alphas that worked at the University of Missouri. So one thing led to another. Our conversation turned into about a 30-minute conversation. So obviously, long story short, I went up there, enjoyed myself, enrolled, graduated, and got my PhD from the University of Missouri based on a Bumping Dots experience.
Y'all, I'm just now hearing this story for the first time. I didn't know that happened.
Yes.
Oh, wow. But here's the thing. Sometimes we lie to ourselves and act like every single encounter or relationship or connection is purely altruistic. You all both got something out of it. Like clearly it's her job to be at the fair and to recruit.
Right.
And you said, "Hey, I'm getting, a free trip. I've never been here before." That doesn't mean it's wrong that's the initial thing. Like clearly if a guy is approaching a woman he's interested, he thinks she looks good or look good on her arm. It's okay to go in spaces and say, "Hey, I would like something out of this, but I would like to give something too." She still gave you an opportunity. You end up picking that school and meeting amazing individuals, some of which who are in your book, Bumping Dots, The Art of Serendipitous Encounters.
Yes.
And so
yes,
it's okay for those things to happen. And I think that's something to highlight, not to feel bad that you desire good things from serendipitous encounters.
Right, because truth be told, we all want something good to happen in our lives.
Yes.
Right? No one walks around looking for bad things, right? Mm-hmm. So as you stated, it's okay if you see an attractive woman or attractive man to go up to them. It's okay for me to say, "Hey, I meet all the criteria for this free trip to Missouri. Why not?" And in the midst of that, I ended up liking the school. I ended up forming relationships and went there and graduated. So it all worked out.
Yeah, and when we show up in the spaces believing we're worthy of good things, then we portray that and we actually attract it, because as a man thinketh, so is he. If you think that you are worthy of good things, then you will be blessed with them, including serendipitous encounters you didn't even know that you needed. And sometimes relationships can last or be strengthened through mutual connection. So I'm sure you even touch on this in the chapter with Uncle Joe, so Mr. Joseph Washington, how you had one connection that led to you all's lasting connection, and he'll be a guest on our podcast, so we won't go too much into that unless you have a little bit you want to add, but we don't want to steal too much of the episode.
No, but you're right. If you read the book, you will find a meaningful connection that I still have to this day with Mr. Joseph B. Washington II. He's an author of a book called Let Average Go. And he would definitely be one of our guests in the upcoming episode. So I don't want to say too much because I want you all to hear from this dynamic gentleman.
Let's transition just a little bit. Still on lasting connections, or if they will last. They don't happen overnight. And so sometimes we go into spaces, once again, with these agendas. So it may not be networking. So in terms of like romance, no one really uses the term, "I'm networking for a husband" or something like that.
Yeah.
But we do come in with these agendas. If I'm at the grocery store and a man approaches me, an extreme could be, are you my husband or not? Are you going to be my man or not? And that's too much. Like, this person has value outside of whether they can give me a romantic relationship or not. I don't want to be objectified in that way. So we can't go around the world in our daily lives objectifying people. What can you give? Yes, we do understand that if you're at the register checking out, in communication, we call it like impersonal interactions. You're kind of just handling business and going on about your day. But Bumping Dots at least acknowledges and identifies that the barista, the cashier, the bank teller, whoever it is, the Uber driver has inherent value in my life. Even if it's the fact that I need them in order to complete this transaction, they've added that value in my life. They're a person. When they leave here, they have family and friends, and me smiling at them can make their day. And you don't know who's observing that as well and can speak on your character.
Yes, and in the book, I do mention about the value of bumping dots, even in the briefest of moments. Right. As you mentioned, you're in a 10 or 15 minute Uber ride. Mm-hmm. And that Uber driver might could share some wisdom or knowledge or information that could change your life. And you didn't know of all the Uber drivers in that city, that one picked you up at that location on that date at that time. And they gave you something. And they might not even know what they shared help you. And you're sitting there like, that was the missing piece.
Right.
And at the end of the Uber ride, he or she tells you have a good day. You tell them have a good day, and you implement something they said. Next thing you know, you could be a millionaire or next best-selling author or whatever.
That's right. But if I immediately go in, put my headphones in, don't bother me, that would not happen. And so it's not about one extreme or the other, that if I am tired and I put my headphones in, I'm going to miss out. But it's also not assuming every Uber driver is going to lead to you becoming a millionaire. Right. It's about just being present, taking time to pause and to breathe. And one thing that I'm learning that is helping me is that there's no obligation that a connection has to last. Even if the other person wants that connection to last with you, there's what we say levels to this. Somebody might want to be your friend, but in terms of alignment, they're better fit as an associate or just someone you see at work. These things don't have to last. And that's the same goes for on the other end. Just because you want to be that person's friend does not mean, or business partner, doesn't mean you all are in alignment for that to happen.
And that's once again, that's a good point that you mentioned, Ashley, that you as the individual, you as the dot, you can determine, hey, it's time for me to walk away. Or you could say, hey, it's time for me to take this to the next level.
Yes.
And either way, it's cool.
Right. I mean, sometimes we make, going back to assumptions, because this person's in this position. So I'm in film, so I've been to film festivals, right, and met amazing people, connected with them on social media, maybe even. No, I'm going to actually give you a real scenario that happened.
All right, get ready.
So
everyone, get ready.
I've connected with like different actors and people in the entertainment industry. And let's say we connect on social media. I follow them and they'll follow me back. And I'll see them maybe like blow up, so to speak. And then I'll go out of curiosity. Somehow I find out they don't follow me anymore. And
so they stop following you?
Yes, which I'm sure I'm not the only one, but when you reach a certain status, this is just once again an assumption, but when you reach a certain status, it could be you start assessing like who is following me, who's a mutual person, like we both follow each other, and are we adding value to each other's lives? If not, I might need to unfollow them. They could still follow me or whatever. But in terms of connections, they're not obligated to follow me. And it makes me reassess to what extent. If I'm just a fan, like when I think about it, it's not like I am adding value. I don't talk to this person. I don't wish them happy birthday. Their posts don't come across my thread that often. It was cool to say I knew them, and it's cool to say that, hey, I was able to sit and eat with this person. Now they're on this level. But reciprocity, when I think about it, that didn't have to happen. But I also feel like this is somebody, if I see again at a film event, I could say hi and give them a hug, and it's no love lost. So sometimes we make things mean more than what they have to mean. People are doing what works for them, and you want to connect with people who you're in alignment with.
I mean, you're absolutely right. And you brought up something earlier. You said there's levels to this. And, not being funny, sometimes, especially when you're in the entertainment industry, other people watch who you're following and who follows you.
Right.
And they're at a certain level now in their career. They're getting these major roles or major commercials or what have you. So all this goes back to part of their marketing, part of their brand, part of their way they present themselves. And as you said, you can't take it personally because you don't have a personal relationship with them. It's not like you call them on their birthday or their anniversary or say, hey, girl, what you doing? Or hey, man, what's up? So you can't get mad.
And it makes you assess, like, was this somebody I was supposed to have done that with? I've grown in terms of bumping dots. What would have happened if I was more present? I still say congratulations under their posts and things like that because I'm happy for them. And so that's something we really have to look at ourselves and say, what role have I played in whether this connection will last? And I know there's things that I have to do better in terms of following up. And like I said before, believing you're worthy of good things. If you're an introvert or if you're somebody who you might feel like, oh, I don't want to bother somebody, don't view it that way. And everything value added, I thought meant, I have to money. How can I help this person get more money or have more influence? But it could just be putting a smile on their face. People like to feel good about themselves. So thanking them for something they did. Let's say they helped you with something months ago, but the fact that you implemented that advice, now you're able to do X, Y, and Z, and you tell them, hey, because of you giving me this advice, that encourages them. It doesn't mean you're expecting a reply back or anything, but just letting them know it can, keep the flame alive to that connection.
And this goes back to what we call interhuman relations. Many people say when a person comes into your life, they come with two things. They either come needing help or they come adding value. However, with both, you could be a blessing to someone.
Right.
Let's say they do come needing help and you're in a position to help them. 2-3 years down the road, y'all may not talk. You helped them, you moved on. Matter of fact, you forgot what you did. And one day you're listening on TV and this person gives you a shout out, said, when I was down and out, I didn't have anything, and I met with Ashley Thomas. She agreed to mentor me. We talked maybe 5 times, and she shared A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, right? And I implemented that. And I know I haven't talked to Ashley and everything, but Ashley, if you're watching this, thank you. And you're sitting there, and you're about to fall out your chair. You're like, this person, they had nothing to offer then, but because they gave you a shout out, now people go to Amazon and Google and get your book that they mentioned or product or service that you offer because of that. See how it works?
Yeah, sowing seeds, basically.
Yes.
It's an example I would love for you to share. If you feel comfortable, if not, we can pass. But there was someone, we started this episode talking about you got to speak at your father's church. And there was someone your father bumped dots with. He was grown, and there was a young man who eventually became a doctor. And he helped your father. And then, you know where I'm going with this, if you could tell the story.
Yeah, here's the story. Growing up, it was in the 70s. Both of my parents were school teachers. And my dad was not only a pastor and a teacher, but he was an entrepreneur. And he started a clothing store. We were living in Opelika, Alabama, but the clothing store was in Union Springs, Alabama. And during the summer, by my parents being off work, they could really go up and work at the store. And obviously I would go up to the clothing store with them. And we were just going about our regular day. And there was a young man, he was older than me. He came up, and my father, they just started talking, a random conversation. And my father asked him what did he wanted to do. And he said, I want to be a medical doctor. And my father was like very encouraging and everything. And the young man didn't have any clothes. So my father owned a clothing store. He said, I tell you what, young man, go in there, pick out whatever you want, shirts, slacks, suits, neckties, belts. He said, whatever you want, don't worry about paying. He said, because you want to be a doctor and I believe in you, all of that. So the young man went in, I think he got 2 or 3 suits, some shirts and stuff like that. We didn't think nothing else about it. So years go by. The young man, he graduates from Auburn University. He goes to the University of Florida, graduates with his medical degree. And lo and behold, he becomes a medical doctor. And he becomes my dad's doctor. And we still got that strong relationship. And my dad ended up getting very ill and needed a heart transplant, basically. So they were saying, due to my dad's age, and he had some other health conditions, that he was not a good candidate for it. And they told the doctor, they said, just tell him, just go home with his family, enjoy these last few days around the peace and comfort of his family. And the doctor said, no, I can't do that. That this man looked out for me when I didn't have anything. So long story short, he said, what can we do? And they said, well, we could get a new valve and put in there, and he'll probably live 2 to 5 years with this new valve. So they were like, okay. So we put the valve in, and during that time, he only lived 2 years, like they said, but he got an opportunity to see his oldest granddaughter, which is Ashley, be born.
Oh. Well, I had to tell my own Bumpin' Dots version of this, because I ended up going to school with his son.
Wow.
And I graduated, went to college at Alabama State in my senior year, graduating semester. You became very ill, and we thought we would lose you. And the doctor who helped you was the same doctor who helped our grandfather. And the episode is titled, How Do You Know That Connections Will Last? And you don't. When Grandpa was in his store, which isn't around anymore.
Right.
He did not know the impact. And the doctor said that when they opened you up, if your gallbladder had ruptured, you were gone. And I just think sometimes about, if it was not that doctor who had that level of care for you, would we even have you with us right now? So no, you don't know if a connection will last, but the impact, I think if we just stop, the impact of a connection will definitely last. And so that's why we have to go through our day making sure we leave a lasting and a positive impact. And so I'm just really grateful for you sharing that, Dad. It's such a vulnerable moment. And I hope that this really encourages people to be present and don't be afraid to sow those seeds, because even if you don't benefit, your children and your grandchildren can definitely reap the benefits. Go ahead, Dad.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because your mother and I, we talk to you and your sister, and we say the seeds that we're sowing, we may not personally benefit from, but our grandkids, our great grandkids, someone might say, your grandfather was Dr. Herb Thomas, that used to work at Alabama State University, that used to be at University of Missouri. Yeah, you know, he did this for me. Come on, I got you. Don't worry about it. And you be like, wow. And I could be dead and gone, but because the seed that I sown 20, 30, 40, 50 years earlier came back and you got a harvest. The grandchild got a harvest off of it.
Yes. When I went to Alabama State, there's a professor who went to school with my grandfather. And I don't think he realized how beautiful it is to hear him tell me stories of what it was like to sit in the class with grandpa. And if my grandpa wasn't kind to him, he probably would have a different story. So the fact that just sowing seeds of kindness and people liking us because of the connection that he had. And I was 2 or 3 when he passed, so I don't remember him outside of pictures, but that's a way of him still living on by his impact in the world. And so I have one final scenario or example that I want to give, and then I want to pass it to you to close it out. And that's when I think about Jesus and the disciples, and regardless of what people's religious beliefs are, Peter was fishing one day, minding his own business, just minding his own business, being present, struggling with the fish. And to him, a man comes up and tells him, let down your nets into the deep, after he had done everything he could. And I don't remember hearing that Jesus was a fisherman, so he had to place trust in him. And by the end of that whole interaction, Jesus is telling him, I'm going to make you fishers of men. And this man is so sold out that he is willing to and does die for Jesus. And it just shows the power of one serendipitous encounter, that you can love somebody so much that you are willing to lay down your life for them by the end of it all. And so I think that's just so beautiful, the testament of how these relationships we have. I love when I can remember when I first met somebody, because you think back, whether it ended well or good or it's still going, about how your life has changed from that moment. So Dad, did you have any final words that you want to share with our listeners?
Yes. Please be present. Take advantage of those serendipitous moments. Take advantage of the spontaneity of life. You never know who you're sitting next to on an airplane. You never know who you're standing next to at Walmart or Starbucks or wherever. And even in the briefest of moments. And Ashley, you mentioned Jesus wasn't a fisherman. He was a carpenter's son. But he said, I make you fishers of men. And the Bible is just full of serendipitous moments. Yes. You know, your life is full of serendipitous moments. And I want to leave you with this. I want you to think about your best friend. I want you to think about how many years you all have been best friends. Think about all the good things that you've been through, all of the tough times you had, but you're still friends. And when people ask you about your friend, typically there are going to be 2 questions. They're going to say, how long were you all friends? Mm-hmm. And how did you all meet? And you can answer both immediately because of the relationship that you built.
Yes. So today, our question of the day was, how do you know a connection will last? And long story short is, you don't. It's about being present. And so we thank you all so much for tuning in on this episode of Bumpin' Dots with the Docs podcast. Please be sure to follow my dad, Dr. Herb Thomas, at...
Follow Dr. Herb Thomas on all social media platforms at Dr. Herb Thomas. And also go to my website, and you can receive tips, strategies, have 7 successful strategies on making connections. So go to my website. It's Dr. Herb Thomas. That's Dr. Herb Thomas. Dr. no period. drherbthomas.com.
Thank you all so much. We look forward to the next episode. We love you all. Have an amazing week.
Peace.